You are listening to Extreme Ownership by Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin. True leadership demands complete accountability for your role as a commander. Leadership often requires extreme measures, particularly when your objective involves securing dangerous territories like Ramadi during the Iraq War, one of the most perilous combat zones in the conflict. These insights emerge from the profound experiences of two Navy SEAL Task Unit commanders who operated in Ramadi, where their capacity to assume control during combat frequently meant the difference between their soldiers returning home alive or making the ultimate sacrifice. You might question how these military principles apply to your civilian circumstances. Fortunately, the foundational concepts that drive Navy SEAL unit effectiveness translate seamlessly to any organization or team pursuing success in complex assignments and challenging operations. Through tactical approaches like cover and move and prioritize and execute, you'll master the art of leadership and victory in the most demanding situations. You'll also uncover how embracing responsibility can preserve your career, why departments within companies should work together instead of against each other, and why encountering explosives and heavy weaponry doesn't automatically justify abandoning your objective. Complete responsibility equals team success. Guiding a team toward victory requires assuming full accountability for every single setback. In 2012, author Jocko Willink served as a SEAL Task Unit commander in Ramadi, Iraq, when his forces encountered intense gunfire from what appeared to be Mujahideen enemy fighters. However, the attackers weren't insurgents, they were fellow SEAL operators, and during this tragic friendly fire incident, a serviceman died. As the senior officer overseeing the operation, Willink held one unwavering certainty: every mistake that occurred fell under his complete responsibility. Surprisingly, by claiming ownership of this devastating event, he actually preserved his position. This happened because his commanding officers understood something many corporate executives fail to grasp. All leaders make errors, but only exceptional ones accept full responsibility for them. This understanding allowed him to retain command of his unit. The significance of a commander's mindset becomes evident during worst-case training exercises that SEAL teams endure. Most units that fail during these operations have leaders who point fingers at the training scenario, their team members, or external circumstances. By refusing accountability, they doom their missions to failure. Conversely, SEAL units that excel in training operate under commanders who willingly accept blame, actively seek feedback for improvement, and meticulously document lessons learned for future enhancement. When leaders avoid responsibility, the repercussions extend far beyond immediate consequences. From Willink's observations, when ineffective SEAL leaders blame everyone except themselves, this toxic mindset cascades to their subordinates who mirror the same behavior. This creates teams that become ineffective and incapable of executing their strategies. Such organizations merely create excuses and shift responsibility, instead of adapting to and resolving the challenges that inevitably emerge. Similarly, subordinates working under leaders who embrace total responsibility mirror this positive behavior. Consequently, accountability and proactive initiative flow throughout the entire command structure. Mission success requires understanding purpose. When military leadership informed Willink that his elite, expertly trained SEAL team would operate alongside the newly formed Iraqi army, his immediate response was absolute resistance. He viewed the Iraqis as inadequately trained, poorly equipped, and sometimes unreliable allies to American forces. Despite these concerns, he remained silent and avoided sharing his negative assessment with his troops. Why this restraint? Before opposing the directive, he needed to comprehend the strategic reasoning behind its implementation. He discovered that incorporating the Iraqi army into Navy SEAL operations represented a calculated strategy designed to eventually facilitate American troop withdrawal from the region. Once he grasped this broader context, he could embrace the mission and persuade his team to follow suit. He then worked diligently to transfer his conviction to his unit. After they understood the mission's strategic importance, they too could commit wholeheartedly and contribute to its successful execution. However, if Willink had immediately challenged the mission by openly expressing his criticisms to his unit, the negative reaction from his team would have intensified significantly. Even if he had later recognized the mission's value and attempted to gain their support, their doubts likely would have persisted, potentially leading to mission failure. Whether you're commanding an elite military unit or leading a corporate team, you must become a genuine believer, completely supporting your team's objectives. When you receive directives that seem questionable, consider how their goals might align with your organization's broader strategic vision. As a leader, you're part of something greater than yourself and your immediate team. If you can't comprehend why you're being asked to perform certain tasks, it's your responsibility to seek clarification from higher-ranking officials. While questioning superiors about their decisions can feel intimidating, failing to achieve this strategic understanding means abandoning your leadership duties, something no effective leader can afford to do. Transform allies into support systems, not competitors. While executing a dangerous mission in Ramadi, Iraq, SEAL Unit Commander Leif Babin found his team isolated deep in hostile territory without reinforcement. To escape, they had no choice but to risk traversing the city during daylight hours. The probability of enemy engagement was extremely high, yet the team successfully returned to base without casualties. However, after the mission, Babin realized he had made a critical error. Another SEAL team was positioned nearby that could have provided protective cover for his unit. Unfortunately, he had been so concentrated on his own team's challenges that he never considered requesting assistance. This oversight meant he failed to implement one of the most basic Navy SEAL strategies, cover and move, which essentially means operating as a unified team. The concept requires every element to collaborate and support all others to accomplish the overall mission. In the situation described, Babin had become so narrowly focused on his unit's specific objective of safe evacuation that he had lost sight of other SEAL units, positions, and potential collaborative opportunities. This tunnel vision placed his team in unnecessary danger. Whether in military operations or business environments, leaders must maintain awareness of their immediate mission while simultaneously considering the broader organization, including other teams that might provide strategic assistance. For example, during Babin's consulting work, he observed different departments within the same company blaming each other and working in competition. They were clearly violating the cover and move principle, which emphasizes that internal teams should support one another while remembering that external forces, not internal colleagues, represent the real competition. The rivalry shouldn't be with the HR department, but with competing firms attempting to capture your market share. Maintain effectiveness under pressure through clear priorities and decisive action. It's midnight in Ramadi. The SEAL team has just exited a building by stepping onto what they believed was the adjacent building's roof. However, this apparent roof was actually a tarp, and one SEAL has fallen through the covering, dropping 20 feet and becoming injured and exposed. The unit finds itself extremely vulnerable, positioned deep in enemy territory without backup, with a wounded teammate and an explosive device blocking the building's exit. What action should the leader take? In this scenario, multiple problems demand immediate attention. The leader's responsibility is maintaining composure while determining the optimal course of action. To accomplish this, Babin recalled his SEAL training and applied a particularly valuable principle: prioritize and execute. SEALs remember this principle through the mantra, relax, look around, make a call. Even highly skilled leaders become overwhelmed when attempting to address every issue simultaneously, making it crucial to identify the top priority and concentrate efforts there. After completing the first priority, the leader can advance to the next one and direct the team's attention accordingly. In the example above, Babin's primary concern was establishing security, his second was reaching the injured soldier, and his third priority involved accounting for all team members. By mentally stepping back to assess the situation calmly, he successfully fulfilled his leadership role despite extreme pressure. Business leaders can apply similar approaches. As a professional, you probably won't encounter life-or-death scenarios, but you can still benefit from prioritizing and executing systematically. Here's the process. In any situation, start by identifying your highest priority. Once determined, communicate this priority clearly and concisely to your team. Next, gather input from key leaders regarding problem-solving approaches. And finally, focus your team's resources on implementing this plan. Afterward, you can proceed to your next priority and repeat the process. Remember that as priorities change, you must communicate these shifts to your team as well. Successful planning requires comprehensive risk identification and mitigation. Just minutes before launching a SEAL operation to rescue an Iraqi hostage held by al-Qaeda, Babin's intelligence officer informed him that the hostage was not only surrounded by explosives, but also protected by fortified machine gun positions. Instantly, the operation's danger level escalated dramatically. Nevertheless, Babin proceeded as originally planned because he had already prepared for this additional threat before knowing it existed. As a SEAL unit commander, he had already assumed such hazards might be present. Anything less would have meant ignoring his complete leadership responsibility in the situation. Incorporating these potential risks into the comprehensive plans he had developed and briefed to his troops was simply standard preparation. He had indeed established multiple procedures to address the risk of potential explosives and machine guns surrounding the target. Due to this thorough preparation, there was no requirement to create new plans or delay the operation despite this significant new intelligence. Such readiness is so critical that Babin frequently uses this scenario as a training exercise for SEAL candidates. He poses a challenging question: would you still have proceeded with this mission after learning about these risks? The correct response is always affirmative. The principle here is that leaders, regardless of their environment, should always invest time in creating detailed plans that identify, assess, and mitigate all known potential risks. Developing such comprehensive contingency plans reduces future risks because every operation participant knows exactly how to respond when situations deteriorate. This preparation increases success probability since your team is ready for unexpected challenges. However, remember that some risks cannot be mitigated, which is why effective leaders focus on controllable risks. Provide superiors with necessary information instead of resenting their involvement. When Babin and Willink served as SEAL unit commanders in Iraq, Babin would regularly storm into Willink's office, frustrated about their commanding officer's constant emails asking what Babin considered pointless questions. Why was he being bothered this way? Didn't the commanding officer understand how many critical responsibilities he was managing? Willink simply responded, "No, because you're not taking responsibility for informing him." This helped Babin eventually understand that senior officers weren't mind readers. They were only inquiring about his operations because he hadn't provided sufficiently detailed updates. The commanding officer was simply trying to gather the information necessary to approve Babin's plans, forward them up the command chain for final authorization, and enable Babin to execute his combat missions. This realization taught him a crucial lesson. He needed to examine his own negative attitude and commit to providing highly detailed operational planning documents to his superiors. However, many business leaders fail to understand this necessity for maintaining positive relationships with their supervisors. Numerous leaders believe that when their boss isn't providing adequate support for them and their team, it's the boss's responsibility. What they actually need to do is self-reflect and remember that it's their own duty to supply the critical information. Their bosses need to provide support and make informed decisions. To express this differently, effective leaders always push situational awareness both up and down the command structure. Taking complete responsibility as a leader means leading and influencing everyone around you, whether they're subordinates or superiors. Key takeaway: the central message of this book is clear. As a leader, whether in military or business contexts, you must take complete ownership of your team and its performance. This means accepting responsibility for your team's victories and defeats, creating detailed plans that account for risks, and maintaining clear communication channels in all directions. Practical application: decentralized command for effective management. Generally speaking, individuals cannot effectively supervise more than 6 to 10 people directly. Yet many business leaders manage much larger teams. Navy SEAL management principles can help. First, divide your team into subgroups containing no more than 4 to 5 people, each with a designated leader. Ensure these leaders understand the larger team's overall mission and ultimate objectives. Then empower your junior leaders to make decisions that support those goals independently. This structure operates effectively without overwhelming you personally. If you enjoyed this book summary, smash the like button and subscribe for more. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.